Nigerian Medical Association says Nigeria's preparedness for disease outbreaks is abysmally low. Nigerians react as RMAFC begins review on politicians' remuneration. In international news, China extends Lunar Year holiday to limit coronavirus spread. And in sport, Tunisia eyes Olympic success in karate.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigerian Medical Association is urging the federal government to intensify all security and medical approach at ensuring that disease outbreaks do not come into the country from any entry point. The association says the recent outbreak of Lassa fever across the country is a reflection of the abysmally low level of preparedness in handling infectious diseases, especially viral hemorrhagic fever, at all levels of healthcare delivery. The Doctors Association, in a statement, also says the frequency of the outbreaks also exposes the deplorable state of healthcare delivery in Nigeria, which means the federal government has not done enough to check its recurrence. Nigeria is currently battling an outbreak of Lassa fever with 195 confirmed cases and 25 deaths in 11 states between January the 1st and 24th. The federal government has reacted to the reports that the United States intends to place a visa ban on Nigerians. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who was speaking with journalists in London, says the federal government is advising the United States to have a rethink because any travel ban is bound to affect investment and growth in the country, and those who will be affected are the most vulnerable people in Nigeria. Mohammed says, though the report is still speculative, but if it turns out to be true, the government will respond comprehensively. The minister says the federal government is working with international community, including the EU and the US, to totally eradicate terrorism. The minister told reporters that Nigeria took the hard decision of closing the borders because Benin Republic and Niger Republic failed to respect the ECOWAS Treaty on transit of goods, and this has always sabotaged the economy and security of the country. Justice Yusuf Halilu of the FCT High Court has convicted and sentenced Mayam Sande to death by hanging for killing her husband, Bilyaminu Bello. Justice Halilu says all available evidence proved Mayam is guilty by stabbing her husband to death 2 years ago. Mayam was a nursing mother and also 3 months pregnant when she was arraigned. She was delivered of her second baby girl during her 2 years and 2 months trial. In 2017, the police had arraigned Mayam alongside her mother, her brother, and their house help on 2 counts of culpable homicide and an ancillary offense. The 3 others were accused of causing the evidence of the offense to disappear by cleaning the blood from the scene of the crime with the intention of shielding her from legal punishment. Justice Halilu dismissed the claim that her husband fell on the shots of a broken seashell bottle during a fight between them. Senate President Ahmed Lawan says the Senate will amend the Electoral Act by reviewing the flaws of the 2019 general elections, as well as subsequent elections and proper solutions for future elections. Lawan says going forward, Nigeria should be looking at where there are challenges and what we need to do to provide legislative interventions going forward. President Muhammadu Buhari had declined assent to the Electoral Amendment Bill 3 times. It cited drafting issues among other reasons for rejecting the bill. The Ninth Senate has reintroduced the bill, which it has killed first and second reading. The bill, sponsored by Deputy Senate President Ovie Omo Agege and Abubakar Kwari, seeks to resolve issues surrounding INEC's introduction of modern technologies into the electoral process, particularly accreditation of voters. Nigerians have been reacting to the reports by the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission that there will be a review on politicians' remuneration. RMAFC Chairman Elias Mba says the review could be an increase or reduction in the total package. Mba said the review would align the remuneration of the political office holders with current realities in the country. Nigeria is rated as a lower middle income country by the World Bank, but Nigerian political office holders is reputed to be among the highest paid in the world, despite the country's revenue challenges. The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association says this is a welcome development, which is long overdue. But Executive Director of Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, Samson Itodo, says any move that would increase the emoluments of politicians is a mockery of the world plan to cut down the cost of governance. Justice Augustina Kingsley Chukwu of the Rivers State High Court has asked the author of a book, Too Good to Die, Professor Chidi Odikalu, to pay former governor of the state, Peter Odili, 250 million naira as damages for defamation. Odili filed the defamation suit before the court, demanding a published apology and 1 billion naira as damages from Odinkalu. He claimed the said book had caused him public ridicule. Justice Chukwu also restrained the author from further publication and circulation of the book and an apology to Odili in 2 national dailies. Justice Chukwu described the contents of the book as distasteful and malicious, adding that defendants abandoned the case and failed to provide further evidence. Coming up, African stories. New refugee laws in South Africa constrain asylum seekers' movement and bans them from politics. And later, international news. China extends Lunar Year holiday to limit coronavirus spread.
Correct, Costi. Give me 100 naira rice and add 888 join up. Yeah. On top. Yes. Yes.
Which time I go be this now? Not be the same 100 when everybody pays this morning.
They no use code.
Which code?
Oh boy, no get it for market to get better wolf. 888 now even the code yo. Have you?
Madam, I beg, serve me 888.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now we go across the continent for events making news. Refugees in South Africa now face new rules that would constrain their movement and disallow them from participating in political activities. Under new immigration regulations, legal status of a refugee or asylum seeker could be revoked if the refugee is considered a threat to national security. Elisa Njamela reports.
Zimbabwean-born Buto Leswe Nyathi has been a refugee in South Africa for years now. He narrates his story and how the new regulations will likely affect him.
I started off as an asylum seeker and now I hold a refugee status from 2005. I am an activist, a political activist. I started off as a social activist in Zimbabwe a long time ago, in early 2000. And I was forced out of the country sometime in 2003, where I skipped the border into South Africa without even having a passport.
Before getting his asylum papers, he had to make means to survive.
I found it very difficult because as a professional nurse, I was working in theater and I found myself having to work in a construction company, something that I was not used to. Anyway, I got an asylum seeker's permit, which is a Section 22 permit.
After following the proper process, he got his refugee status.
I went through the process of interviews where the refugee status determination officers had to interview me, and they determined that I qualified as a refugee in 2005. So from 2005, I've held this status as a refugee.
Nyathi is the chairperson of a Migrant Workers Association. He's also part of the African Academy for Excellence and Development. The new regulations will be quite restrictive to Nyathi and others in similar situations.
We are already frustrated by the processes of producing documents for us to travel. So if this these regulations are going to be further restricting our participation and our movement within the borders of South Africa and also outside the borders of South Africa. We feel that it will directly impact on our activism and in the process of trying to resolve our crisis in the countries where we are coming from.
Nyati's concerns are echoed by other organizations that represent refugees and asylum seekers.
Asylum seekers are not here to disrespect or go against the laws of the country. They have to abide by them. I still insist that the restrictiveness is not going to help fix our situation. Actually, South Africa will be in a situation where people are just flocking in and just staying and not fixing their problems.
The regulations under the Refugees Act already took effect from January 1, 2020.
The future of e-commerce is both bright and challenging for players in the sector, depending on how receptive they are to the dynamic nature of the sector. Africa's e-commerce giant Jumia plans to embrace the positive vibes from the sector and expand payments platform to drive revenue. Deji Badwas reports from Lagos.
Despite listing on the New York Stock Exchange last April, 2019 was not a particularly good year for Jumia. Its share price crashed from a peak of $49.99 to well below its IPO price of $14.50 on the back of fraud accusations by short seller Citron Research. Its former employees also admitted sales rep placed fake orders to meet daily targets, and its third quarter performance of 2019 was far from impressive. But addressing this group of journalists in Lagos and the company's plans for this year, the co-founder sounded very upbeat.
Last year was a normal year. We did some great things, we had to make some decisions, but at the end of the day, nothing brings us down. Nothing can bring us down, because the people you meet at Jumia when you know them are absolutely exceptional people.
Jumia has actually grown from its modest beginning in 2012 when it launched in Lagos, but growth has not translated to profit. It's racked up losses from inception, and last year it had to end its operations in 2 of the African countries where it operates and laid off staff in Nigeria and Kenya, while ending its food delivery service in Rwanda. Odara told this gathering that beginning from this year, the company would seek to aggressively drive its online payment platform Jumia Pay to boost its revenue.
Because we have this huge marketplace ecosystem, because we have a great product, and because we have this base of consumers, we want to make sure that Jumia Pay is in a position to become the next Alipay, the next PayPal, the next Mercado Pago. Jumia Nigeria will be again at the forefront of that.
But Jumia would need to work extremely hard to dominate a market that is now quite competitive, especially in Nigeria, where even global players like Alipay also wants a piece of the pie. Chinese mobile payment platform OPay is also fast gaining ground in the country. This is in addition to virtually all the mobile telecoms operators who are now venturing into the mobile money market. The banks are also there as well.
There is space for everyone. But at the end, we are here to build the next PayPal, the next Alipay, and this is something because we started 8 years ago to build e-commerce where we have a shot at. Now it's our job to build the best product, to build the best simplicity, the best trust, the best all of that.
Odara and his team have their work cut out. They know that the sooner Jumia began to make profit and keep its investors happy, the better for it, especially if the tech firm would have to approach these same investors for some more cash at some point in the future.
Gambia's President Adama Barrow's decision to stay in office for 5 years instead of his initial 3-year pledge is creating serious social disorder in the country as protests continue. The government has resorted to banning groups and silencing the media to see if that would quell the people's dissent. The government has banned the 3 Years Is Up movement, and that is the group that has been mobilizing the people to demand that Barrow leave. The government says it is a subversive, violent and illegal movement. Police in Banjul, the capital, fired tear gas at hundreds of protesters on Sunday. Demonstrators responded by throwing stones and setting tires on fire. More than 130 protesters were arrested by police. A local hospital director said 3 persons were killed in the clashes. The government has denied that any protester was killed. Up next, sports. Tunisia eyes Olympic success in karate. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. The Chinese government has rolled out new emergency measures to tackle the spread of coronavirus. The Chinese New Year public holiday has been extended by 3 days. China's second highest ranking official has visited Wuhan, the city at the heart of the outbreak that has killed 81 persons. Nearly 3,000 persons, mostly in China, have been affected by the coronavirus, but cases have been reported in more than 10 countries, including across parts of Asia, the US and France. With the New Year holiday extended, trading on the Shanghai Stock Exchange has been suspended until Monday, while some businesses in Shanghai have been ordered by the local government to suspend operations until February the 10th. China's government has also banned tour groups from leaving China in a move to limit travel and the spread of coronavirus during what is the peak season for tourism within China and internationally. Major Lunar New Year events were cancelled in Beijing and China, dampening a holiday period that traditionally sees millions of people travel across the country to spend time with their families. With more on the story, here is Wen Xuan in Wuhan.
A measure to reduce mass gatherings. The Chinese government extended the Lunar New Year holiday to help block the spread of the epidemic. That's the word from the General Office of the State Council.
I think the extension of the Chinese New Year holiday is very reasonable, which is also advocated by the government. This is mainly to avoid people gathering and cross-infecting.
And schools across the country will postpone the opening of the spring semester until further notice. The higher education institutes and education authorities in each district will provide online courses, make special teaching and management plans, and organize students to study at home. Art schools in Beijing, Shanghai, and East China's Zhejiang province also pushed back the date of students' enrollment exams. The exact date is yet to be decided.
The exact date of the opening of the new semester will be notified according to the situation of the outbreak. What's behind the decision is our sincere care for the health of children and students.
Meanwhile, in rural areas, local authorities are getting the word out for migrant workers who have returned home from bigger cities for the Spring Festival holiday.
There are people publicizing epidemic prevention and control everywhere in the country around the clock. Thanks to that, we are now aware of how we can better protect ourselves from being infected.
And in Longquan town in Zhejiang province in East China, residents put some tips into a short video in local dialects to help senior citizens informed.
Many local elderly people can only understand local dialects, so the video can help them better protect themselves and prevent infection from the novel coronavirus.
China is employing an unprecedented response and draconian tactics to bring the situation under control and back to normal.
Plastic pollution has become one of the world's most pressing environmental issues. Many governments are passing laws to deal with the accumulating waste. In Mexico, the capital city is trying to lead by example, as reporter Alasdair Beverstock explains.
Starting this year, single-use plastic bags are banned in Mexico City, and those who fail to comply will be fined. This city, with its millions of people, discards tons of single-use plastic on a daily basis, with each resident estimated to go through 650 plastic bags annually. And while the ban may have taken people by surprise, many customers are taking pride in reducing their use of plastic.
Even though we were given a few months' notice, you only really notice it when it actually happens. But we're all very conscious of just how damaging single-use plastic is to the environment. So like with any change, you make the effort to get used to it.
Vendors are enjoying going back to the old ways of wrapping up produce, doing their own on-site recycling as they turn old newspapers into paper cone carriers, known here as cucuruchos. And while there are hints that not quite everybody is fully on board with the policy, sellers at this market are certainly aware of the consequences.
Vendors who are found using plastic bags are fined or arrested. We have seen very severe punishments, such as businesses being shut down.
Gerardo Galicia runs Urios, a company dedicated to the disposal of paper and hard drives containing sensitive data. He says the recycling aspect of his business is a big draw for his clients.
You have to talk about the issue and promote safety alongside recycling. People are increasingly conscious of the problem, especially the younger generations, so we are certainly on the right path to follow as a society.
The plastic bag ban is just the start of the capital's plans to go greener. Starting next year, plastic cutlery, drinking straws, and even party balloons will all be banned in favour of biodegradable options. Just how the public will react to that may depend on how quickly they adjust to this year's ban on single-use plastics.
Up next, sports. Tunisia eyes Olympic success in karate. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. After finishing fourth at the 2019 African Games in karate, Tunisia is preparing so hard for the best performance at the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics as well as November's World Championships in Dubai. Reporter Admin Chawoche brings us more.
Thamer Slimani is a world, African and Mediterranean karate champion. The multiple gold medalist is among the best athletes in his discipline. The 20-year-old martial arts specialist trains for hours every day at the national team compound in the capital city Tunis.
The World Championship is more challenging than the Continental African Games or Championship. I've learned so much in Africa before defying athletes from all continents. There were adversaries from 100 countries at the last World Junior Karate Championships in Chile.
Ryan Tlili is 16 years old. He trains with the Tunisian Karate Elite to prepare for upcoming African and world tournaments.
Tunisia has a huge potential in karate. Athletes of all ages have good technical and physical attributes. This is why the level of the national team is very high. The competition within our team makes me learn and improve my skills every day.
The young champions are trained and supervised by Mohamed Jama and other national coaches. Joma says the Tunisia Karate Federation has provided all necessary means to develop this sport in the North African country.
Tunisia has many female junior world champions. Tamir is the first Tunisian karate athlete to win a gold medal in the World Championship while he is under 21. The Tunisia Karate Federation is preparing him for the Tokyo Olympic Games and the 2020 World Senior Championships. We are proud of all our athletes.
Thamer Slimani and Ryan Tlili belong to a new generation of Tunisian karate champions who learned at an early age this martial arts discipline. Tunisia aims to remain one of the leading African nations in karate. The Tunisia Karate Federation monitors the activity of hundreds of clubs and thousands of athletes nationwide. The most talented and the best ones are discovered at regional, local and national tournaments before joining the Tunisia team here.
That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.